Tonight, we take a look at Queen of the Damned 20 years later, then Conan the Barbarian 30 years later. And after that, we'll conclude by taking a look at Amazon Prime's new show, The Peripheral. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to the Writer Brothers, finishing up our Halloween movie picks with Queen of the Damned and Conan the Barbarian, and of course the show we've been really excited to talk about, The Peripheral. But real quick, I'll just go around the room here. Mr. Corio, Witch in Residence. No, we got a little late start due to technical issues, but how are you otherwise?
Doing great, and I do apologize. Broom parking around here is very difficult, but I managed to finally find a spot.
Yeah, you're in one of those kinds of neighborhoods where you're not the weird guy you're the normal guy in the hood.
Oh no, I'm in like the Toronto version of I Hear Banjos. Don't worry.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. Mr. Pollo Zapatos is also here. And how are you doing today? Oh, the Stream Element spot is running. Well, that's good. I didn't know it did that.
Quite awesome. I am doing quite awesome. And Arende, how are you? Welcome.
Didn't know it did that.
Quite
How do you know Arende's here? Oh, I'm not getting the chats properly. Oh, this is great. So I'm gonna have to look over here now. Arende, good evening to you. Welcome. So Corion.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead, since it's your movies and this is kind of your holiday celebration on this. So doing great. Hey, the thing decided to report in. Good.
All right. So Queen of the Damned.
Your holiday celebration on this. So doing.
If you're an Anne Rice person and you enjoy that kind of vampire world she created, Queen of the Damned as a book usually holds a very special place in people's hearts. The movie, not so much, because they change an awful lot to make this movie work. That being said, there's a lot to like here if you're willing to look for it. Yes, the plot is different from the Anne Rice novel, but Stuart Townsend, I will say this till the day I die, plays an incredibly good immortal. He did great in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It was the one watchable thing in that movie. In Queen of the Damned, he's basically playing the same character, only he drinks blood instead of having a really funky portrait. He plays very neatly into the role of Lestat, and the premise of the movie is basically this. Lestat has been sleeping since his wake-up last time, and now he's come awake, it's the 90s, and he's woken up by a punk band. So what does he decide to do? He decides to become Marilyn Manson and run his own band.
Sorry, continue.
No, it's totally true.
That's what I thought when I was watching it. I was like, oh, it's the Marilyn Manson origin story. Okay.
Right? And his band starts taking off to a huge degree. And as it's taking off, the vampire hunters, watchers, whatever you want to call them, start to realize, wait a minute, he's breaking their rules of secrecy. He's coming out into the open and becoming very awake and aware to the general populace. And needless to say, this is a completely unprecedented event. No one's really sure how to handle it.
Yeah.
This all starts coming to a head when the queen of the vampires, who's been sleeping since the time of Sumer, decides to wake up and pay her, who she wants to be her new prince, a visit. So that's the basic premise. Now,
yeah. So I'm not familiar with the original novel, but I want to just say that because I actually did enjoy this story a lot. Like, this is one of those films I could probably watch once a year. That like, I was kind of blown away. This just feels like it just suffers from its product of its era. There's obvious early 2000s, edge cheese going on, which, all right, you can't really get away from that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I could see why in the early 2000s people watched this movie and probably were like, yeah, vampires are gonna come out in the open and talk openly. Come on, what is this, Crazyville? Whereas here in 2022, if that happened, we'd be like, yeah, obviously. It's so
But not
much
only
has
just
changed in 20.
obviously, not yeah, but so much including the idea of just like superheroes. Like at this point, like we have like ever since Iron Man did it, it's like old news. Like even though this guy was technically the first Robert Downey Jr., like no,
Yeah.
when he said it, when he was like, you know what, I am Iron Man, and then the title
Nobody.
sequence, this movie over,
Yeah.
And
like that's kind
Yeah.
of like what Alistair did or Listar did, and I think that was something that was like really, really funny. Was like, and now it works. Back then, it was like faux pas and impossible and unlikely.
right,
Yeah.
and for the record, any vampires that are currently, awake and roaming the night and are interested in joining our show, we would be more than welcome to have you on the Rogue Council on Thursdays.
And not just Rogue Council, even on this show. I mean, you can see you've got a Messianic Christian mystic, a witch, and then whatever the hell John is on this show, a chicken. Rinshar writes in, if you do read them, skip out before Memnoth, the devil. That's where the franchise jumps the shark, in my opinion. Corio,
I would
care to
agree.
respond? Okay.
I would agree.
That's two
Yeah,
now
yeah,
that have
that's
told me.
the
That,
line.
all
That's
right,
the
good,
line.
got it.
Yeah.
There is nothing. Memnoth
I don't
before
know,
Memnoth.
I love
That's it.
Corione's just response was, no, yeah, that's the line.
Duh.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Everybody that read past that knows that.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone that read Memnod the demon suddenly stops and goes, wait a minute, what just happened here? And starts, having to go back in the previous books to look at where this could have possibly come from, and it just doesn't come from anywhere. So
That's a hard part about world building, especially once you start making money off of like a one-off.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to keep everything on track.
And to be fair, I mean, like, Anne Rice writes some fantastic stuff, and she's worth taking a look at just from like a writing perspective on how to take dark imagery and make it work. Right?
Yeah, and that's it's even if the movie deviates from the original writing so hard. Like I said, I went into this movie not knowing anything, and it was the first time I saw it, and like I said, I was impressed. I looking at it from a writing perspective, objectively, just okay. It has plot. It has characters. It's not like super complicated. It's fairly easy to follow, which I don't even use that as a metric for. I think that's one of the silliest metrics that ever came up in writing is this a Tolkien novel with 5 billion pages of backstory? No? Oh, it might as well be a kid's book. Yeah, I don't think that's a fair way. I think regardless of what the genre is, you can objectively look at a story and clearly see, okay, the story's there. And the acting was there. I didn't feel any part of super cringe. Like I said, the only cringy part was the music and sometimes just the stuff that it's from the early 2000s.
Yeah, you see, I love the music though. I will say that. Like this soundtrack does work for this time and this kind of setup of a movie, right?
Yeah, it's that grunge rock for me personally has never really been my thing. I'm definitely a lot less apprehensive towards it than I used to be. I'm a lot more open to different music tastes than I used to be back when if I had seen this movie in the early 2000s as a young kid. Yeah, I probably would have hated it because of the music. But for me, the style doesn't work, but it does fit the tone of the film. And to me, the music is half the movie, so that also did its job as well. Rinshar follows up, says her post-Born Again stuff is surprisingly good too. Oh, so that is the author I was thinking of. Okay. Yeah, no, I will have to check it out then.
Yeah.
And Rinshar writes, on the upside, the original soundtrack isn't Affleck Daredevil, right? Okay, yeah, no, I'm not gonna.
No, honestly, the soundtrack I picked up after watching the movie in the theater. I immediately went to the record store and picked up a copy. It was a no-brainer for me to pick this up. Again, I like that dark, grungy kind of music, so this was right in my wheelhouse.
Expert mode on most of the songs in the soundtrack.
Ah!
Disturbed, Alice in Chains. There was some Manson. I think I heard System of a Down at one point.
Yep, there's some Papa
I used
Roach
to
in there.
love that music. It's like pretty early on. Nowadays, it's like lower on my tier, but
Well-
I still love all those artists. And when I heard the songs, I was just blown back. I was like, oh, I love Disturbed. Like when they started playing Down with the Sickness right
Yep.
there in the middle, I was just like,
That's my
Oh,
that's
that's
my
a
go-to
beat.
theme song whenever I'm sick. I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, let's just get it going. And then I post on Facebook. I say, hey guys, just letting you know this is my life right now. Gotta get up, come on, get down with the sickness.
Nope.
I had a friend of mine, Merrick Astroth, who plays in a band in Key West, and he wanted to do a version of that for the holidays.
Yeah.
Better get up, come on, get down with the Christmas. Orville Nation writes in, hey, writer bros, hey, you.
Orville!
PJ, good to see you. Arende writes in, I think I've seen that movie as a kid, I just don't remember it, and I can remember DS9 episodes 20 years later. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, good to have you catching us, writing us live. That thought derailed before it even left the station.
So first I was going to say, for Disturbed, Invincible is like my song before I go do fencing stuff. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I do want to touch on that, though, because I've had discussions about grunge rock before that I think we're probably just we're touching on. It is more of a phase. I mean, look at the band Train, for example. They started out super grungy, and now they're Train, which is fine if you still like Train. But I had a discussion a while back with somebody that it was like when some of the grunge rock stars were allegedly committing suicide, there was kind of a pattern that's noticed there, and that kind of got me to realize that that's probably a product of staying in that music genre for too long, even not just as a listener, but as a singer. And I think it's important to kind of balance it out every now and then with the newer Train type stuff, just because it's
on that, I would say, like, Asking Alexandria, they technically followed Train in that they changed their tone a little bit and modernized, but they're still playing grunge, and then same Pierce the Veil.
Well,
and I think that like the thing about the phase is it's more about like your station in life.
Right.
Like if you are still in that I'm breaking walls, I'm fighting, fencing, you know, in the Marines, that's all military music is all day, every day. And when those guys came out to play for us and stuff, it was the greatest experiences of our lives. So I think
I'm not saying it's
phase
bad.
is more of about it's more of a mood.
Yeah.
That not everybody enters, but when you do enter, that music just hits.
Now, that being said, one of the things I really, really love about this movie is how both kind of like real and surreal any scene with the vampires are. Because when we see vampires in this, we're led to believe by the cinematography that they're just normal people doing normal stuff. And then suddenly you catch just little things out of place. Just enough to make you go, there's something not right with that guy, or that girl in the corner hitting on that guy seems not right somehow. They're just not moving right? Like just something really simple, right?
Yeah.
And then, things get really, really interesting because then it suddenly goes off the rails and we suddenly stop seeing the trying to blend in and starting to see the predator show up. And that terrifying moment of, I was being stalked and I didn't even realize it, is fantastic the way they've done it here.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, and then Rin Shah writes in and says, the public moved on, but there are some good bands that kept doing it after, like, failure. And yeah, and I'm not saying, like, it's a bad thing. It's one of those things that I definitely bust out the caution tape for. People got to get through their phases the way they got to get through, and I know that music can be helpful. That music can also fuel the other direction towards the swallowing lead, and that's all I'm just trying to say. Hey, just be mindful. Because I didn't really dive into grunge during my depression phases. I went to the bottle of alcohol. So I'm also just speaking from someone who's been...
Depression.
I've swirled that toilet. It's not fun. What's up?
You're thinking of grunge as a depression music. I'm thinking of it as like an aggressive music. Like, if I'm gonna work out, grunge. If I'm gonna go for a run, grunge. If I'm gonna do, like, if I want to drive fast, play a grunge song. If I want to get hyped, it's like my hype music, if you will.
I would
rather
also
than
say
like a
this.
depression. Like, depression music for me still is just sad relationships.
Pink Floyd
would
for
also-
me personally, but yeah.
I would also say this. Just like on the upcoming Sunday show I've got going, where John is going to guest star, you know, the main character says it best. It can't rain all the time.
Nice.
Mhm.
Rinstar says grunge is 1,000% heroin addict music, though. I mean,
I don't
Yeah.
know. I was always too fat to
I
be a
feel like-
heroin addict, so
I feel like
yeah,
that's
you needed cocaine.
one of
Not that
those-
we endorse cocaine usage on this show by any means, but
one of those square
in the event you
rectangle
decide not to listen to us.
situations. I think it's one of those square rectangle situations. If you are on heroin, you love grunge, but just because you love grunge doesn't mean you do heroin.
real quick. So, you're fat, huh? Do cocaine. This has been shitty dieting advice from Petey.
Brought to you by
you know
cocaine.
that's going to get clipped out, right? Like, you know that's going to get clipped.
That's fine.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm just saying, we're going to, at some point, I'm going to sit down, download all the episodes, and do a clip show of all the terrible things we have said on this show.
We have it coming. So that's all good. Yeah, no, I was, like I said,
I'll be the first to laugh.
I was quite impressed with, like I said, I was impressed with the story, I was impressed with the characters, and I was impressed that aside from, the early 2000s cheaper CG, I think with a few million more dollars invested, it could have been a substantially better film overall, and I could have probably touched a wider audience, but it's aging pretty good, I gotta say.
Yeah.
As far as movies go, I was glad to
As
watch
far as
it. Thanks for the
vampires
recommendation.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fun, like, in terms of vampires, this is by far one of the best, and actually makes everything after it seem really disappointing. Because, like, in all of the vampire shows that I've watched, from Vampire Diaries to Supernatural, not the same kind of vampire, but same elements, and then also, like, Twilight and stuff like that, like, most of the female vampires are, like, barely making it. Just kind of slightly getting by, whereas like the Queen of the Damned, who doesn't even show up until like the last like 10-20 minutes of the movie,
I know.
has actually been
This is a case of the Legend of
perfectly
Zeldas.
running, well, dude, she's been running the entire corporation that is her family, because like she has like the idea to do that. Like, I think that's where like all of the other vampire movies really fall off, is they don't show what would happen if a parent became a vampire and what a parent would do, because they are continuously living through their children and children's children's and children's children. Because like a parent has to be like, do I want to bring my child with me on this terrible experience forever? You know, no, I'll suffer, but I'll make sure they don't. And I'll do that by, building this giant corporation that protects them in every single way.
Well,
And I'll run it. Like the whole stone thing, I like how that was actually a lie. Like,
Yeah.
she never turned to stone. She was just completely in the shadows, following her own rules.
Well, I mean, when you think about it too, right? Every one of the vampires in this does something to keep themselves sane, to occupy their immortality with, right?
Or tries to.
Or tries to. Marius paints, right? Lestat plays music. We see every one of them have a thing that they're trying to fill their immortality with.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing, because I would say that those aren't there too. Like, one sec, I just... For the
Yeah, when you're
feeling
done, let
point,
me
I don't
kick it to
think-
me and I'll do the fan mail.
I don't think Maria is... his thing isn't painting. That's what he does while he does his thing, which is guard the statue. And then... Lestar is... His thing is finding a thing. And that's what makes it, like, that's kind of where like the hero's journey is for this story, is like his mission is to leave home and find a thing to keep him busy for eternity. And by the time at the end of the movie, like, what does he find? Somebody who's already built a legacy worth following and looking up to.
Mm-hmm.
He finds a mentor, a trainer. And I think that's actually like not at all what you would get from this movie if you're paying attention to every scene. But like I've said in the past, like, I don't always watch intently on movies. I listen more than I watch and look away quite often. And in that, like, that was what I was listening to, is I was hearing this story of this lost person trying to figure out this life is thrust upon them and having no adversary. Like nothing was as scary as he was, especially not to himself.
So let's get the fan mail.
Yeah. I'm going to find out that Rende must have been like myself from the future or something. The Rende writes in, guess I'm the weirdo of the group of weirdos. Lol. Growing up, I was listening to James Horner, U2, and Queen. So I did listen to James Horner as well. I did listen to a metric crap ton of U2 growing up, as well as others. And our mother was actually a huge Queen fan. Probably more than any Christian conservative woman should be. But hey, that she loved what she loved, and she was shameless about it. Did not care.
Queen's Universal, man.
Queen's Gold album of their greatest hits on repeat because it was the one CD that had a few songs I really liked.
Yep.
From is it? I can't remember. Bicycles is one of my all-time favorite songs. Bohemian Rhapsody, obviously, but it's not Backstreet Girls, is it?
Flat Bottom Girls.
Flat Bottom
Girls. Those are my top.
No, Fat Bottom Girls.
Fat Bottom Girls.
As I say, Flat Bottom Girls do not make the rock and roll go round. Sorry, ladies with no ass. Right. It's just not there. Rin also says, hey, Queen invented thrash metal, you know.
Yeah. That's true. All right, so then I guess let's move on to Conan, because we got...
okay.
Yeah.
Well, did you guys... Actually, I meant to ask before, but we were dealing with technical problems. Did you all, by chance, finish Reboot?
Not yet, no.
Oh,
not yet.
Okay. Yeah, the season finale was yesterday, and so we might follow that up next week, because, well, we should probably follow it up. But let's see, make sure... and moving on to, well, what I kind of found to be not as well written or executed, but definitely one of those watch at least once, and who knows, maybe some insight could be provided to change my mind, or maybe I was meant to suffer. Conan the Barbarian came out the same year as Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan and the only real version of The Thing That Matters. And yet, with those two powerhouse movies of that year, we get this. I'm sorry, Corion. I know it was your pick. I'm trying not to shit on you too hard, but
not at all.
Oh, you did this on purpose. Okay.
No,
Go ahead. Give us the reason why you subjected us to such mental torture.
Okay, so Robert Howard is one of my favorite authors of all time. Okay. The Conan series of books is probably one of my favorite reads when I need to get into, that I'm fighting something big and I need to deal with it kind of mood. That's the thing about him. And Conan the Barbarian is, I'm willing to bet if Howard saw this movie, he would have literally walked away in disgust. And that's what kind of makes it hysterical. The movie bears very little resemblance to the actual Conan novels. But what it does do right is put Arnold front and center and let him just be Arnold on the screen for a long period of time. And if you're going to throw somebody against, if you're going to put a bad guy that's going to have enough gravitas to stand up to Arnold, putting, James Earl Jones as his antagonist is gotta be the best choice you could make for an antagonist that can live up to the scene-chewing power that is Arnold. Because, let's be honest, most of his combat training consists of, pushing the wheel, right? Like, there's no real, more than that.
What was that even for?
Because they could. They wanted to show him being a slave, I guess.
So it's just like being in the military.
Yeah, right? But it was fantastic, right? Like, we get, at the end of the day, though, Arnold does fit the Conan mold fairly well with the character by the end of it. Because Conan is not a good guy. He's a thief. He's a barbarian. He does what he needs to do to earn money and continue the fight on. And that's what's neat about this character. And when you have James Earl Jones turning into a giant freaking snake, you've got yourself a movie there. Even if that, if I went into a movie studio and they're like, okay, pitch. And I was like, James Earl Jones turns into a giant snake, fights Arnold as a barbarian. Yo, that movie's getting made. The rest of it doesn't matter. The movie's getting made. Right? And that's kind of what we get here, is a lot of weird wackiness that was set up to set up those particular situations. And it's fun. It's ridiculous. Arnold punches out a camel. You can't ask for much more than that.
That is probably one of my favorite moments in cinema now. Just in general, like, it's so random and so just Arnold, and it's just so perfect. Like, it was worth seeing the movie at least once to see that scene. I'll give you that.
Yeah, like, I mean, look, you remember the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd, which was really just Sylvester Stallone being Sylvester Stallone, and while it's not Dredd, it's still a fun movie to watch because of that. This is one of those. This is Arnold just being Arnold, but it's so ridiculous that it makes it fun.
Yeah. All right, and we got some fan mail now. Rinshar writes in, also, if you want some weapons grade Ooftonium, try Conan the Destroyer.
Yes.
Arende says,
yells in, lol, I remember the camel punch.
Lol, I remember the camel punch. Yeah, see, try that. You got to put a little behind it.
There's also the
also to our viewers on Facebook, we're sorry, but it looks like Facebook's crashed. Although I'm not sure why I'm saying that, because you're not going to hear it. So, oh well.
Another one for the ages in that movie is Conan's prayer to Crom, where he's like, I don't know if you're listening, and I really don't care, but I'd like your help, and if not, screw you. I'm gonna go do it anyway.
It's a very honest prayer.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm like, that's perfect.
Yeah,
you can't ask more than that. And
I
feel like, knowing what I know about the backstory in all the Conan books and of Crom, I'm willing to bet Crom would just laugh at that and be like, yeah, okay, now you're getting my help because that was hysterical, right?
Yeah, and then there's I also love the scene between the two of them where they're arguing over, my god will kick your god's ass. No, my god's better than your god. I'm like, yeah, this is why we don't have world peace. Anyway, Rid Sharrite said, you do have to address Conan's absolutely phenomenal soundtrack, though. Please feel free what you found phenomenal about it, because I was still waiting for a Klingon bird of prey to come flying in, because man, did that soundtrack sound a lot like Star Trek 4. It had some good areas where it built up, and then it just turned into his fighting theme, and I'm like, da 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 da, from the whale episode of Star Trek.
I hate to break it to you, but you've got a very good ear, because I believe they are the same composer.
Was it James Horner that did that one? I know Horner did.
It is.
Yeah, that would make sense, because he recycled the Wrath of Khan theme on Aliens as well.
Yep.
You just played it backwards instead, which, oh wow, it was just a feat of brilliance. I'm so glad we have John Williams to have real musical standards. But I am open to interpretations, so Rin, if you have an idea that I need to consider, please share it in the chat.
Well, I will say it is a good background
he was
music
trying
for when
to
you're
see
hiking.
if you got that, knowing Rin.
Oh, you know what? He could be typing a sarcasm, and that's very hard to tell with the text-based medium. I mean, it's really good.
Well, as a writer, I can read sarcasm in writing.
It did help the slower scenes, because I think my biggest issue was this movie could have easily been cut down to an hour and 30 if we just didn't have so much time spent on establishing shots.
True.
Quiet. We're on an establishing shot. Let some music build up.
Okay, but to be fair, when Peter Jackson does it in Lord of the Rings, it's, we appreciate it now, right? This is proto Lord of the Rings.
There's just a difference in the way they went about it. Like, I just feel that a couple of the scenes warranted that slow, you want to get it established, but it just seemed like that was the theme throughout the entire film. I was just like, oh man, we're gonna look at this vista again. Okay, let's. I'm gonna go pee, and I go and pee and come back. Yeah, we're still on that same shot.
The whole pitch meeting for the film was, we can we can finally film on helicopters and take out the sound. So let's write something to fit this.
So take it out.
2 hours
Renshaw writes,
of
it says
nature
it's not
documentary.
Horner. Looked it up. Same guy as RoboCop, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I said, I think it did a good job with the more subtle, quiet background scenes. Message retracted. Disregard what I just read. I think it did a good job with like the more, when they're like sneaking around the giant snake, and then it was every time it busted to his main theme, I was like, this is Star Trek 4. So it was
Well, I think
hard.
it's funny, like the theme thing and everything Schwarzenegger. It seems like, how can we bring like the WWE into a film? Because like that's who Conan's supposed to be, is the size of a WWE guy, and so like the fight music, they were like, yeah, you got to keep the fight music.
You might as well have just done the TOS fight music. That would have been an improvement.
If somebody recuts that Conan the Barbarian with the Star Trek music, I will watch the hell out of that.
That'll be a yearly tradition at that point. I would absolutely have to watch that every. Oh man, that'd be that's a good idea. You just have to.
I feel like Conan the Barbarian.
Just so long as you don't do what Mexican Iron Man does, when he's got a girl over. That's the Star Trek fight music is what he plays, and I just don't think that works for him.
That's not gonna have the mating ritual results you were seeking there, buddy.
My thing is I think that when it comes to Conan, I feel like it's ready for a modernization Monty Python. And instead of the horses clacking, it should just be somebody following him around singing the Star Trek. Singing music, like dun 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 dun, and he's the one making all the noises the whole time.
Oh,
and nobody
man.
ever acknowledges him except for Conan. Conan's the only one that knows he's singing, and everybody else just sees him next and doesn't do anything. Like, they never attack him, never acknowledge his existence, and Conan's like, get out of my ear!
Yeah. You killed my sound effects
dress
guy.
him up in a fly costume. And then
Oh man.
I think it would be perfect, especially like if you low budget, you don't try to CGI a fly. You just have a guy in a fly costume following him. But everything else CGI, like modernized, the flyovers, everything, even steal some from Lord of the Rings just spliced in there. Desert, green oasis desert.
Desert, a bunch of hobbits crossing across a mountain, desert, yeah.
Yeah, if Mel Brooks...
Bilbo running out the door for no reason, just one flash, like in Fight Club, but instead it's just random Lord of the Rings scenes for 1 second.
Conan the Barbarian by Mel Brooks is what this is quickly churning into. So now all we need is a musical number. We'll get the guys from Hamilton to bust out in a musical number in the middle of a fight.
The two new kids in the first movie of Pitch Perfect, the two guys, the one that's the magician and then the like love interest, those two just constantly doing all the singing.
Also,
chasing Conan.
Also, you can't just have just the Star Trek music.
Conan's played by Danny DeVito.
But you've also got to bust out
straight.
Yeah. Well, remixing the soundtrack, you can't just do the fight music from TOS. Obviously, you have to put in the Imperial March every time James Earl Jones is on screen, especially when he's in his not Darth Vader armor.
No, just have Darth
Seriously.
Vader scenes.
There was once the scene he's on the horse standing there. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like,
you kind of want his sword to start glowing red suddenly. For no reason.
Anytime anyone pulls out a sword in any media, I just go. Let's see. Arende says all that Mel Brooks movie needs is the Hobbits going plaid. Plaid or well, they're already plaid because they're kind of like hillbillies. It's a little redundant, but what they could do is they could have the elves do something. And I don't know what to do. Yeah, my improv. No. I didn't graduate from improv academy.
I don't know if I would throw out I think the hobbits can't. Spaceball reference. Very well.
Oh yeah, no, I'm sorry, Renda. Yeah, I totally got that. I was just like, they're already plaid. I read into references and jokes a little more than anyone should, and at this point, I just accept it's who I am.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Well, no, see, and that to me is actually a perfect segue into what I thought of Conan, because anything that's not 2005 and newer, I just give it that it was old. Like, A, they didn't know that any of this was possible, and B, how could they? And so like that's how I went to watching this. But then all I saw was the same thing. Like when I watch old Star Wars, is like, yeah, it wasn't the perfect CGI even at the time, and now with the modern add-ins and stuff like that, and it beautifies it. But like, it's the story counts. It's the universe around the story that counts. And I think with Conan, the thing that like really I thought was fun was like, where are the demigod stories that don't have the gods as the main antagonist? Where's the Hercules story that's just about the scene fighting the Hydra? Because like, it's not a superhero movie, because they can have all sides of a human, because they are supposed to be half human. And then they can also have all the powers of a superhero, but all the naivete of a human, all the negligence of a human, all the failure of a human. And I think that's something that Conan really, really had at its like core, at what it could become and what it can be in like in modern days. I just feel like that movie, yes, it technically is long. It was pretty arduous to watch, but at the same time, the way it ends, the way it is and still like lives on and as a video game to this day, like that's better than still most media today. Like, it was boring because it was 2 hours long with a lot of flies, not boring because the story was boring.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that matters. Yeah.
So this story is part of a genre which they call sandal and sorcery. The basic idea is it's, you know, physically buff dudes taking on powers that they have no way to deal with or concept of, right? And the only way that they can really deal with it is by hitting it with a sword harder, stronger, faster than the other guy can wiggle his fingers. And that's the idea of these stories. And in a lot of ways, when you think about it, like, that's kind of to me, that's my kind of horror scenario, right? Where it's like, you know, there's this giant tentacle monster coming at you and you have a big metal stick, right? Like, when you think about that from that perspective, that's a pretty terrifying scenario, right? Like, even if you know a sword well, you know, that's for, you know, this is a tool for taking on other people, not for taking on, you know, like Cthulhu with, right?
But then to have the scene where the hero just has the heart to go to war.
Exactly.
I feel like it's something that makes that horror way more admirable, worth watching in terms of like, I am scared of dinosaurs and but I'm also willing to look really tough while I die fighting it.
That's it. And that's to me what makes this a good Halloween movie is, you know, we get the terror, but we also get the, no, I'm going to face this. I'm going to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry to kind of shift subjects back for a second, but hey, it's what we do on this show. We have open discussion sometimes. Rinch Shah writes in, says, Hobbits equals Hillbillies is now officially Petey's worst take. Well, okay, I guess you're right. I mean,
Dude,
let's see.
They're so closer to a communist hippie commune.
Yeah, let's see. They grow their own food. They pride themselves on growing their own food. They smoke a lot. They live out in a forest kind of area. They provide for themselves. They make their own clothes. They don't really want to have anything to do with the rest of the outside. Well, yeah, no, you're right. Totally nothing in common. Look, I get that they're not I'm not trying to say that they're, you know, riding around in an orange painted buggy with a Confederate flag on top blowing the Dixie horn theme.
Closer to hippie commune, though.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like
that's what hillbillies
Northern
are.
California dream. Well, no, the big difference is most hillbillies don't dance around a pole for somebody else's birthday.
No, they just dance around
and that's where the
a
hippie
barn.
Part really comes in.
Well, they dance around a barn with a bunch of. There really isn't a whole lot of difference between hippies and hillbillies, John. There really isn't.
John, at some point, let me
I've
explain the
both.
maypole to you, because there's a whole thing there.
There's a huge thing there. I don't remember it all, but I have participated in several maypole festivals.
Yeah. Wait a minute. traditional maypole festivals? 1, and 2, does your wife know? Because I think she probably should
No,
know.
these were when I was a child.
Oh,
These were the
okay.
family-friendly
And more in the
reform.
yeah,
okay.
the
Reform.
Okay.
Yeah.
PG.
Okay, 'cause I was gonna
no, I think it
say.
was like PG version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like G version.
Okay.
I don't know all the like I said, I don't know all the festivities and I don't know all the ceremonies, but I do know that it is an important festival/ceremony.
Yeah. When we can be sure the kids aren't watching, I'll explain the maypole to you.
Yeah. Arende writes in, I'll take a good story over pretty explosions any day, and follows up with narwhals can take on Cthulhu. RLFL.
Cthulhu.
OL.
And
What?
yes, obviously.
Well, he
Cthulhu.
spelled it Cthulhu, but or
That's how
Cthulhu.
it's spelled.
Is it spelled CTHU? I thought there was a U
Yeah.
before.
You're supposed to not be able to pronounce it.
Or in the Americanese,
It's
Cthulhu.
always been no, it's always been reader's interpretation. That's the best he could get with the consonant sounds.
And that's part of the reason why I love Lovecraft,
The
is
phonetic
because
sounds,
some
I
of it
should
is
say.
just so unpronounceable and screwed up. It's fantastic.
Dude, Midsummer
Yeah.
was phenomenal.
Also,
Everybody
I do
I've
want to.
ever watched it with hates that movie. I love that movie.
I
was
did also-
disappointed it wasn't Midsummer's Night's Dream.
I did also want to finish up too. If as far as the worst take for Lord of the Rings goes, I offer Rings of Power.
Oh.
And the Rinchar says, y'all need to watch Midsummer next, huh? I don't know, do we?
That is a
Midsummer. That's
movie.
Midsummer.
Sommer.
Midsommar.
Uh,
Somar. Midsommar.
No, it's
Sorry.
Midsummer because it's a festival in, correct me if I'm wrong, Norway? Or was it Sweden?
Just about all the traditional peoples of Europe had a version of Midsummer.
Ah, there you go. So it's a
Pretty
probably
universal.
Viking. Who would be the one to? Would it be the Vikings that would have pushed it, or do you think it would have been the Celtic?
Oh,
the Celts?
God, dude, the problem with the Vikings and the Celts when it comes to holidays is the Vikings invaded the Celts back in the formative years, so all of their mythology gets kind of intertwined and weird at points.
Mythology. I thought.
Oh,
we were
not
just
ju-
talking
well,
about the fact that red hair.
well, the mythology, the culture, all of it gets intertwined a fair bit, so it's really hard to tell where things separate out now.
Well, that my question more is just, do you possibly know the origin, like who he was saying it first? Because a lot of it seems, especially from what I've learned from the Celtic culture and from the Viking culture, the greater Viking culture, is just as much as there was the raiding and the pillaging, there was still also market, trade, and merchants, and so people are. I feel like there's a lot more Marco Polos than we've heard about.
Yeah, so basically, so a couple of
Move
quick
and
things.
bring
First,
their thing with them.
yeah, a couple of quick things. First, the word Viking literally translates to leave your village for work. Right?
So I'm a Viking. I've left
Right.
my village for many works.
Right. So you got to remember that. For the next piece is, as for midsummer festivals, the Greeks, the Romans, the Slavics, the Celts, the Norse all had a holiday at midsummer roughly the same, with roughly the same concept involved. And part of the reason why is because midsummer is actually the day where you have the longest amount of light of any day of the year. So it
Summer
was
solstice.
exactly. So it's significant to all of these peoples because it's also one of the major harvest times of the year. So there's a lot there, and each one has their own various traditions involving it. Modern
think of
people
it
kind
like
of practice a
accents.
hodgepodge of all of them now, but
Mhm.
because all those cultures intertwine and intermingle and discuss and share and stuff. So you'd have to get a real, accredited historian as opposed to the amateur one that I am
Or
to
The
pull that
amateur
one apart.
that was Snorri Holston or Snorri something or other.
Yeah, like you'd have to get in somebody along those lines because that's just a little bit beyond what I can offer.
Fair enough. I was just curious. And if we're
Yeah.
wondering how this all ties in, well, he basically was a Viking.
Yeah.
At least in look, appearance, activity, choices, willingness to fight, ability to fight, and overall acumen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the sand version of the sea version.
Arende writes in, says, if you didn't get the narwhal joke, look up the narwhal song by Webble Stuff.
Yes.
And then Rinshar writes in, it's got a maple, it's wholesome, in reference to Midsummer. And Rinshar then follows up with, Viking meaning left home for work is accurate in the same way that Ronin means unemployed is accurate. Like, sure, but it's a little more specific than that.
Yes.
Snorri
It was a type of work.
Sturluson.
That was the main super Jesuit Christian who wrote about everything he could find on the Celts and Norse.
Cool.
And he was very biased. So if you read up on him, he tries to, and I don't say any of that to disparage his work. I just say that to put the lens on his work, that he tried to merge the cultures while writing about somebody else's culture without ever actually just writing their lone culture down.
Well,
But he
my
did
takeaway
share
from
some
that,
of their poems.
my takeaway from that is every time I leave home for work, I'm a Viking. Yeah.
Well, you got the beard for it going.
Exactly. I got the beard. I got the hair. I just, I don't have a sword. All I have is these stupid guns. So, missing out on
it from
something.
range.
All I do is,
Sweet.
I do.
If you sharpen one side of the gun and throw it at somebody, you can call it an axe
If you
and call
start
it a day.
stabbing people with your gun and only shooting the ones that run away, that's pretty Viking.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's,
Terrifying. Honestly, that
Sheriffs
sounds like
have
a
issues
really
with
fun
shooting
gun
people in the
game.
back for some reason. Yeah.
Oh, dude, we're saying Viking. That morality was long gone by the time you're playing Viking rules.
Yeah, I don't think claiming Viking as my religion's gonna save me from shooting someone in the back either. They kind of frown upon
Dude,
ritual
you did
killing.
Just impale people with the barrel at first. That was what I was saying. Is like it's mostly a hatchet or a handled sword that you poke people with, and then when they run, that's when you pull the trigger.
Arende writes in, I do have a small sword I got as a kid. Yeah, mine didn't grow much more either. Oh, you mean an actual sword?
Yeah,
It was there. I took it. That's as dirty as we get on this
Oh, he
stream.
says a
usually.
maul sword too, not a small sword. A maul sword.
Well, see if I have
Maul
trouble
Ninja
seeing.
equipment.
I have trouble
Dyslexia
seeing my
took you there.
screen. I don't know why. I can't read words as clearly as I should be able to from this distance. It's
You mean
something's
from the gutter?
interfering with my vision, I guess. Yeah, it's because I have a maul sword I got as a kid. No.
Yeah, I mean, I've got.
Somebody has a parent that loves them, I guess. I
It
don't
must be
know,
nice.
whatever.
Every time we tried to buy crap from the mall, all we got was Legos.
Oh, geez, what am I running around with these days? I have a Pizarro and a Sparta Ropera, a Naginata, a cavalry saber, which has an interesting story on it, and I don't know, I think like 2 or 3 others around. But then when you do fencing, people hand you swords and you just kind of go, oh, okay.
I want a replica of whatever the hell Jack Churchill used when he stormed the beaches playing bagpipes.
That would be a Scottish claymore.
Are you sure? Because I've heard that's not the
Pretty
case.
I was told it was a Scottish
That's what I
claymore.
heard too. Yeah, that's what everyone thought was a big giant claymore, but I think he had more of a rapier.
No, I don't think
style.
I don't think the Scottish claymore is giant.
Are you sure? Because I've seen William Wallace's
think it's-
claymore, and that was like taller than me at the
Well,
time.
Not.
Probably still is.
There was a big thing with cavalry. Like that's why the only sword still in military commission to this day is the NCO sword, and the NCO and the officer sword. But the NCO sword was reduced in size for cavalry, and that cavalry sword became the traditional one. So I'm pretty sure there was a version of that molded closer to the Scottish claymore.
Yeah, Red Shar writes
and
in,
just called that.
says they always say it was a claymore, which is still a badass sword. And like I said, you get the William Wallace connection if you get one. They always say it was claymore, but you can see in pictures it was a basket-hilted broadsword.
Oh, so I know what it is he's using. Just
Do you
looking at
have
the
one?
pictures here. I don't,
Ah.
but my roommate did have a Shinavona, which is a basket-hilted, wide blade sword that is about that length, which was lovingly referred to as the Scottish mercenary sword. So there you go. Yeah, just
Rich,
looking at the
cool.
picture here.
Richard follows up. A claymore is the Scottish Montanan, or dang it, Montan or Mont. Struggling with that one. I want to say is it Montanti? Or, yeah, Montant or Montanti or Zweihander.
Yeah, Zweihander.
Oh.
German
Zweihander?
two-hander sword.
Yeah, the Writer Brothers is very educational. I guess it comes with the name.
And Scottish Montant. Yeah.
Montant. Sounds like
Knew it was
French pronunciation, but
Mm-hmm. Or Montante. Yeah. Okay.
Montante. Yeah, just like R&D. Oh, damn it, I said it wrong again. Yeah, there was definitely. I will say this. Okay, let me thinking back with the positives of what I did like about Conan the Barbarian. The fight sequences were good. They were definitely they were. Well, I mean, the violence was pretty tasteful up until they broke into Epstein's Island, and then they're eating Soylent Green, which that was some interesting imagery. Snake Master feeds humans to other humans. That's a little. Totally not going on right now.
The absolute greatest scene is when he's in the cage and they're like, he's reading the works of like all these people, and it's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they bring him a woman and watch as he does something that is usually pretty common to most other people by then. But hey, they want to watch Arnold make another baby Arnold.
Turn around.
Well, it can't always be with the maid, right?
Well, no, it's actually funny. We can't joke about it, but there was a point in the story, like he was treated as though he was a prize stallion.
Right.
Yep.
So it was more like people were paying his master to bring him like their slaves to get his blood or his sperm.
Mm-hmm.
Which you would, and especially like in stallion insemination stuff, they actually do watch to make sure it took place and it was the stallion they wanted. So
that's ironic
grotesque
because
for sure, but literal, surprisingly, yes.
Yeah, well, that's ironic because it's been theorized that Arnold might also be a product of breeding manipulation himself. That would actually make for an interesting rogue council discussion.
Well, I think the thing with like, especially bodybuilders like Arnold, I think one of his biggest things against him is he chased the limelight, and with the limelight comes the scrutiny. But like,
yeah,
look at the Mountain. The Mountain never chased the limelight. The limelight found him, and the Mountain from the Game of Thrones has never been accused of using steroids, as far as I know.
Well,
and
he's also only known as the Mountain, though, too.
Yeah, so like that freak genetic pool does exist, and there we go. For our Monty Python modernization, the Mountain plays Arnold.
Oh my god!
Actually, I kind of want the guy who plays Tormund Giantsbane in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah,
because he's got a sense of humor, right?
Yeah, I could see Giantsbane. Well, no, I could really see the Mountain playing the Conan, but I could see Giantsbane being one of his posse.
Better yet, I got it. Mountain's Bane plays the talking version, the screen actor, and then you have the Mountain trade places, and you even have a scene where he's getting ready to fight, and he goes, "Oh wait, forgot to swap you out for the stuntman." Oh, right, sorry. And then the Mountain just
they
walks
just
in.
Tag out. They just walk up and tag and carry on.
Even better, Giantsbane, he runs around in a cloak, and whenever they get into like a situation, he hides under it.
I believe,
and then starts talking, and the Mountain never says a word or moves his lips. Just does all of the voice acting for.
And then Rinshaw writes in, Halfthor Bjornsson. Cool dude.
Yep.
And I hope I pronounced that name correct.
I think you got it pretty close.
Yeah, I know there's going to be a comment like 10 years from now on this specific video where someone's going to try canceling us for referencing drug usage, my mall penis joke, and now this. So,
Well,
you
don't
pronounce the
think so,
names
because
wrong.
I
Well,
feel like
I know. It's not because I'm not trying.
the Norse-blooded people of Europe are the Canadians of Europe. Much more dealing with their own stuff to be worried about how you're dealing with their names.
I know. I'm a joke. Yeah, do
Yeah,
not
there
cancel
were
the
a
writer.
few
Actually, please
groups
cancel
that
the
were-
writer, brothers. Please tell everybody not to watch us.
Yeah, there were like terrible.
Do not blast
Yeah.
our name everywhere. Do not tell us that
Do
people
not-
shouldn't. Yeah.
Let everybody know we exist.
Don't.
Yeah.
Do not
Because
hit
if
that
they
like. Do
come-
not hit subscribe. Do not hit share. Do not collect
You know, post on your
$200.
social medias. Go directly to jail right now. We're actually undercover cops. You're all under arrest. Turn around. You see us. We're here.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think we do have plenty enough now to unpack with Peripheral since we are doing the first 2
Yes.
episodes. But before we
Good,
do
'cause I
that
watched both
story,
of them in a row and was pissed there wasn't a third.
well, the third one's next week and we have a weekly show. But first of all, this stream is brought to you by C&C Sutlery. C&C Sutlery for all of your Civil War reenactment needs, as well as living history. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, why exactly are we sponsored by a place like C&C Sutlery? What exactly does that even remotely have to do with anything that we cover on this show? Well, guess what?
We are greedy and we like money.
That too, but we also, they also provide a lot of props for a lot of movies and a lot of shows. We're actually quickly becoming the #1 provider for Civil War and era type gear. We also provide a lot of the stuff for all the different regiments and battalions that do reenacting. So, and they of course come in all different varieties. You have your hardcore actors who only allow you with authentic gear. And of course, you know, you have your I want to be comfortable because I do reenacting for a living types who buy our more comfortable gear. But you can find that here on the homepage, ccsutlery.com. And of course, if you scroll, oh wait, there, I scrolled past it. Go all the way down here, we have this movies and TV series section. A couple of new titles that have been added, of course, Emancipation, which comes out on December 2nd. And I Heard the Bells from Sights and Sound Films. I don't know anything about that. It takes us right to the trailer. Well, we'll have to look into that one. But either way,
If you see them,
if you
go
see
to
them,
their website, give us a shout out.
if you go to
Let 'em
CC
know we sent
Sutlery,
ya.
yeah, put in the comments section. I came here from the Ryder Brothers, and, well, it doesn't get you anything special yet, because we only have 89 subscribers at this time, but we're working on it.
It could convince them to change their mind.
Absolutely. Friday, one of the best science fiction shows since Altered Carbon Season 1 on Netflix, at least for me, came out, called The Peripheral. Who would like to do the play-by-play synopsis for this one?
I just did too. It's up to one of you guys.
Don, you were
It's
so
all you,
excited
Parker.
to talk about it.
Oh,
you don't-
dude, I'm too excited to remember how everything happened in a row. It
That's
was
fine, we
so
can use-
fun, but
we
there were
use
so
IMD
many overlapping steps.
we reference IMDb here. It's not...
No, I'll rough sketch it.
I got it, or I'm
spoiler
pulling it
alert.
up.
Oh, you got it? You got it? Parker's got
I'm
it.
working on it. But why don't you go ahead and share your initial thoughts, because you seem so excited you forgot what happened.
All right. Well, it's not that I forgot what happened, because it's just I forget the order of events because they're so cool. If you loved Ender's Game, if you love
Ready Player One.
One, and if you love
If you're
Just
mad about the Tron
the
Legacy,
combination. Oh, Tron Legacy, Tron in general. If you like the idea of video games, Westworld, and not hyper science fiction, just slightly advanced time lapse, like it's something like 70-ish years of time. And it's about 10 years in the future. And then it's so cool. If you want to jump into it.
All right, here we go. Storyline for episode 1. Flynn Fisher is a brilliant gamer who works a dead-end job to support her brother and ailing mother. Oh, well, I can relate to that. When her brother enlists her help in an advanced game, Flynn sees something she shouldn't bring danger to the family's doorstep. That's a very, very bare synopsis, but...
yeah, so, I mean, the
40
first thing...
minutes and 5 seconds.
Yeah, so... When I started watching this, the very first thing I noticed, of course, was the intro. And in the intro, I was like, wow, they're going into like Ready Player One neuromancer kind of area. Like, man, William Gibson, if he didn't get in on this, I'd be shocked. And then who's based on the stories of? Oh, William Gibson. Okay. Right? I was like, all right, well, at least I know who's on board. So the more or less the premise is that, yes, she's very good at this game, and they get sent this quote-unquote beta test virtual reality headset. And this VR headset turns out to be more than just a standard VR set. It's a complete interface. It allows you to feel everything your avatar feels.
Yes, real quick. Of course, it is worth mentioning that in this story, she is the bestest ever. But.
Well, no.
But.
It's not.
But. You're over there. But. It's justified. It's explained. Everything makes perfect sense. And that's why I like this show so far.
Well, here's what I would say. She is the bestest ever in the gamescape. In real life.
And it's displayed that it's only in the gamescape. In real life, she is
she needs help.
Weak gamer.
In real life, she's a gamer.
Yep.
Like by the numbers, and I loved that. I love that the main character is a femme. It is somebody who's supposed to be the weaker person, who's also the more intelligent, who's also not. And I love that in the first episode, you kind of feel like you're watching a Mary Sue for a second because of that bestest ever thought. And that's where I do credit you for going the way you went, but also I don't like the idea of just because we see a female character, she's most likely a Mary Sue. Just because she's good in the first episode,
That's why I called it out the way I did.
But
I would actually say that the moment that sums up her not being a Mary Sue very, very well is when she's trying to buy medicine for her mother, is confronted by 3 dudes and realizes how over her head she actually is. Winds up having to get help.
They are to hurt her.
Yep. Winds up having to get help, but here's the best part. And then after she gets help from the guy, realizes that her e-bike is low on charge and could probably use a hand getting home.
Well,
and that was just perfect. That she's in that scenario, right?
She acknowledged him. She knew that he.
I had that under control. I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need no disabled man.
Yeah, no.
Quite the opposite. What she did,
right?
There was that.
He's well augmented in return.
When he pulled up, she was like, "No, you're wounded. Like I'm weak, but you're weaker. Please, like, don't risk your life for me because it's already messed up. Like that just sounds horrible." But then, like, when he threw the bottle, you saw her recognize, like, oh, he's not lit. He's 100% ready. And that's when she turns to him at the end of it and starts, like, talking to him. And we don't find out till episode 2. But, like, she knows exactly who he is, why he is the way that he is, and has a familial connection to him. And I mean that more in terms of, like, she feels like he's an older brother because of her brother's brothers in arms. And that to me really was apparent in that scene, looking back at it from later scenes. And that's what I really like about this show is even though not everything is expressed in that one scene, it all gets backed up by future scenes. It all makes more sense and it feels even more whole, which then add in all the science fiction and you're just like, this is so sick. like I could not get over the flybys. Like we go from Conan flybys to Peripheral flybys, and Peripheral learned a thing or two about a thing or two, because those are the sickest cityscapes I've ever seen on the big screen.
I enjoyed every single second of watching this. Right out of the gate, it felt a little bit sluggish to start, but then it just it takes off and it just goes. And yeah, like I said, if you hated Tron Legacy, you definitely want to watch this. This kind of feels like it slides in some of those
tries
elements.
to fix it. Yeah.
And it's
well, I think it really did fix it in the first video game we see. The one that's the Ready Player one. It's basically somewhat equivalent. I love the difference between the brother who wasn't using his controller the way she was, which shows that they actually care about like gamers in terms of who uses what type of controller. Like she's down here on her little like phone watch thing, and then he was like playing more like actually moving his arms with some kind of feedback system.
Well, yeah, because it's made very clear as the episodes progress that he has implants that allow him to directly interface with certain types of technology.
I wasn't sure if that was for sure the implants based on that. I thought that was also like, I thought that was just a game control variant, like an optional variant for different player types. So that
he is set up. So what I am looking at, based on the information I've seen, and I might have taken a look at the original work by William Gibson, his unit was all cybernetic up to be able to interface with the technology they were bringing to the battlefield. So, like, for example, the drone that would be flying over the battlefield would be an extension of one of the operators' vision that he was sending down to everybody else in it. But he'd be like hiding behind cover, getting ready to aim a shot, but he'd also be controlling the drone and making sure it was flying over the right area. So they had Overwatch and so on and so forth.
Ghost Recon to me. I was so happy when I saw that. Like
whoa. Back it up. Back it up. That's episode 2.
Well, so okay. Well, yeah, but even in the episode 1 portion with the brother, and even the sister, I really liked the part where, and this actually really changes kind of my opinion of Prey, was where I was standing up and saying like they did take a lot of time to like show her as somebody who was paying attention, and the tribe kind of listened to her, but some of them just didn't. This showed what that actually looks like, where when she walks up to the campfire and she goes, I think like I've been told there's a $9 million bounty on our family, and they all laugh at her entirely. Like they laugh her out of the space, and then immediately go,
We're tier 1 operators.
Let's
just maybe take a quick little look.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? Like, we find nothing?
Yeah, and we make fun of her more because she's hearing ghost stories. Like, win-win, right? But that's the way they thought about it.
That's your explanation for their motivation. Well, if she's wrong, we get to make fun of her some more. All right.
But even then,
yeah, but I mean, to be fair, that's what operators do.
True.
True.
Like they have to justify that just the fact that she brought that to them, now they have to sleep with that thought. And are they going to go to sleep without double checking? No. But if they double check, what are they going to do if she's a liar? Well, we're going to burn her. We're going to laugh her. We're going to make fun of her. And that's how it works, is like when somebody tells you something's happening and you're trained to always be ready for something bad happening, you're gonna double check. You'd rather be wrong than right.
I'm also going to say, I don't think it had too much to do with the fact that she was a girl, and everything to do with the fact that she was the little sister of one of them. And that, you know, they're kind of sitting there going like, oh, come on. You know, it's everybody in the team's little sister.
Right. And not even, not only that, but you have to add on the fact that like out of nowhere, she's just like, dude, they're coming after us, $9 million. And they're like, I'm pretty sure you got hacked.
Fine. How are you?
Is it a Nigerian prince? Like,
are you sure that wasn't $9?
$9. You know.
Yeah, exactly. It sure wasn't $9. Your family?
We're nobody. We live in the woods of Appalachia. I mean, come on, $9 million.
Yeah.
And well, apparently John has a $9 million bounty because he's bouncing.
Well, yeah,
No,
but
sorry,
I
I had to
mean,
get the door to the loud voices. But no, it's
Oh,
like the $9 million bounty thing though, but like on top of it, they're like, also we're tier 1 operators. And they
yeah.
said, they called the girl. Like, you're not even the name on the original package. Why would they call you? Why would they threaten the one person who's not dead?
yeah.
And that, but even then, like that's what like makes Prey dumb, is like where Prey was like, no, they just didn't listen at all and gave her no benefit of the doubt. In real life, people that actually love their friends and family and tribe, give them the benefit of the doubt, but also add some hazing into it. And the hazing isn't derogatory or pejorative, it's hazing. It's just
Yeah.
goofing,
All
but not at
busting.
the extreme ball busting. There you go. And that's okay, especially when you respect them enough to actually double check. And then what happens when she's right? They don't go, oh, we thought you were making it up. They just jump. They're like, she was right. Cool. She's not somebody that's gonna cry wolf. We're always told everybody's crying wolf. She came in super hot and it matched the situation. Let's go. And that's really where like how you write a good character. And I feel like that's where a lot of these modern writers are like, we have to write good female characters. And it's like, no, you write a good character first, and then you decide what they look like.
Yeah, and to be fair, we do see a lot of, I'm going to call it positive femininity from her as well. She takes care of her family. She tries to make sure everybody's all right. She cares about the people around her. These are good things to see too, right? That's
But dude, she's also presented as the most intelligent from her experience playing games, and for once it's coming out of the game and into her real life rather than just being games. Like, it all works in the game. She's the, like, they talk about her being the best at this version of Ready Player One, and that's what got her the headset in the first place. And how is she good at it? Well, she's a gamer. She plays games and she pays attention to all the rules of all the games. And her brother even, unfortunately it's in the second episode, but her brother chastises her for her choice that we see in the game about letting the goats free. And she goes, yeah, but there was no other option. You said you had been in there for 20 minutes and couldn't get out. And I walked in and in 5 minutes continued the mission. And he was like, yeah, but that's because you had empathy. And she was like, yeah, but there was literally no other way to beat that mission. So maybe empathy matters. And he's like, yeah.
well, you know, it's different philosophies, right? And that's the interesting part we're seeing at play here. The interesting fact is that neither of them were wrong, right?
No, they're equally working. Their individual philosophies are working, which is the frustrating part about life.
Yeah. I mean, like that, but it also shows a fantastic point, right? That, you know, for as much grief as she gives her brother, a lot of it is more the kind of grief that a brother and sister give each other, and less about either one of them being incapable. Both of them are capable. They're just dealing with their stuff in different ways.
And her willingness to forgive him immediately when she realized he was wrong. Like, where's that in a lot of our female heroes?
And well, when she was wrong, yeah.
Where's that?
That's it.
Heroes these days. Like, she came out super aggressive at him about taking their mom's drugs. He protests. And then she talks to her mom about it, and her mom explains the whole situation. It turns out he's given her all of his extra, and it's still not enough for what her mom's going through. And in that instance, she goes, hey, I'm really sorry I came off at you. Like, I didn't know what the situation was. And he just goes, yeah, you didn't. And I also know why you came at me hot, because you thought you did. And I would have come at you hot if I thought you did. And Arende writes in, she came in super hot. Interesting choice of words. No, that's exactly how I would describe how she came into the show.
Yeah, but for the double entendres,
a beautiful woman in every
sense
of the word. Oh, really? I love Chloe Grace Moretz. She's just a fantastic actress, person in terms of like her approach to what she thinks is right and wrong. And she doesn't seem to be, but I mean, look, she's one of the first female heroes that we've seen that actually seems like a dope hero for any gender, let alone for the female gender. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate
she was
her.
the strong point of both Kick-Ass movies.
Except for Shadow of the Clouds. That sucked. That was such a dumb movie.
Well, here's what I would say. While I did not particularly find her physically attractive personally, the actress is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
She does incredible in the role, and she definitely plays the character in a realistic manner that I would like. Her acting choices, I think, were really well decided choices. So
Yeah.
again, not there are definitely incredibly gorgeous women in this show. I just don't count her among them.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well,
Everyone's allowed to have
Yep.
preferences.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I say, what for me, it's not an interesting choice of words. And for the character, it's not that it adds an extra level of it, but it goes back to what we consider heroes.
Yeah.
And Corione's the perfect example. She may not be, in his mind, the best looking among us, but she's definitely the best for that role.
Oh yeah.
Best suited in every form and fashion. And I think that's something that's like really been lacking in a lot of our heroes, both male and female lately, is the people aren't holding themselves to a higher standard, a heroic standard, and therefore they don't come off as heroic, whereas she holds herself to that standard. And we see it not in the fact that she's more, her clothing looks more expensive, but that it's always cleaner than everybody else's in the town. Like hers is the only stuff that's not constantly dirty, because even though she's helping her brother, she's not babying him. She's not momming him. She's not doing his laundry. She's not telling him to wash up. But she's doing all of that for herself and for her mom.
Big
And the
brother,
only
it's
difference
time for
between her
supper.
mom's clothes and yeah, exactly. There was none of that level of that's how much of a cornerstone to the family she is. She's the cornerstone because she's the one that keeps saying, be nice. And that's her shtick, is be nice.
I think the
Not
most mothering she does
perfect.
is leave a beer for her brother.
That wasn't mothering. That was the most best friend thing I've ever seen. Because she
Oh,
walked on
absolutely.
the window carrying 2 beers because she wanted to go spend time with him, saw him suffer. And I love that she goes back and gives her back. She's like, no, I don't want this alone. I wanted it with you and I didn't get to have that. So if you need them, because he looks like you do, they're here for you. And then when the brother goes, thanks for the beers, they were warm. Like, that's brotherly love in terms of like, I'm not gonna give you the full, you're a perfect person.
You ain't
just
gonna
made
get
my whole
no
night better.
satisfaction.
Exactly. You're gonna get a little sauce because I can't keep you thinking like you're done, you're perfect now, you don't need to change. Like, you need sauce until you die, because that's my job as your brother.
Yeah. I would also say that some of the other pieces that were really nicely done in this is, the London of 2099 is gorgeous and so idyllic, and yet kind of terrifying and terrible as well.
Yeah. And Rin Shar, if you're still watching, the soundtrack to this show is alone worth viewing, because if you like the Conan soundtrack, huh?
Did it give you Dark Knight vibes?
It kind of did, but it honestly, it felt,
Vibes,
Dark
not the
Knight
songs,
and Tron.
Not the music, but vibe.
Dark Knight and Tron is what I'd rate it. Is a very, just like, the opening theme also feels somewhat different from the rest of the themes that they use in the show, which is what I like. I like a good opening theme that stands out like that on its own.
Dude,
But-
I love the opening cut scene. Like, the whole
see,
scene.
I
Like,
don't-
The theme is so pretty. I
Yeah.
love
Now,
that style.
See, here's what I'm going to say. I actually did not like the opening credits. I like the opening music, but the opening credits make me feel like I'm watching a video that Real Player is failing on. That's just how it feels to me. Like,
That's, to me, I
And
like
I get that
that
that's-
version of digitization.
I get that
Like,
that's part of the aesthetic, but it just doesn't work for me. I would like to see something that feels less like watching The Expanse opening through I don't even know what to say, through like a really bad codec on a video player. Like, that's what it felt like to me. I get what they were trying to go for. It just didn't hit for me personally.
I
For me, it hit so hard because I love that that lines, the color scheme that they chose. I really like the gold threads, and I like the discombobulation because it goes with this story. Like the picture isn't wholly there, and the pieces that are missing might also be crucial.
Okay,
Well-
so I want to address Arendi's.
I was gonna say, Arende has announced he's actually watching along with us. The giant statue-shaped building felt weird. Yeah, I think there's more explanation coming for those.
Well, I'm going to say this.
Complete sense.
I was going to say this. Have any of you noticed what those statue buildings are?
The Roman.
They looked, very
gods,
Roman.
as far as I can tell.
The Roman gods. So
Yeah,
when you think about the imagery of, we're going to that level of almost decadence of recreating these statues in the city
On that scale.
on
And
that
are you
scale.
kidding?
Yeah.
Dude, they are towers if towers were looking at towers. So massive. And like when it zooms in, I love that, and you see there's this whole series of corner offices on each side of the arm, but not the middle, because nobody wants a middle office. They just want their corner office.
I'm
It
going
to
to
me
say
just felt
this.
like this empire.
I'm
of
going to say this.
Something or other.
If the Roman gods there is not foreshadowing, I'd be shocked. Because I definitely feel like that's foreshadowing something.
See, and here's my question to that, and that's what that's what made them so cool is, do you think it's foreshadowing future events that happened before 2099, or all of the events that are occurring will lead to events in 2100, which is where like episode 2 technically starts, when they finally tell her what time she's in. They say 2100.
All right, I'll get this over with, and then we can dig into episode 2. All right, episode 2 of the Peripheral storyline from IMDb. Mercenaries raid the family home. Seeking answers, Flynn returns to the headset and learns it's not a game, but a time machine that goes 70 years into the future. Well, sort of. Flynn makes a deal with Wilf and Lev and agrees to help find Aelita.
Hey, Nemesis of Eden, good to see you too. So for the second episode here, I mean, it starts with probably one of the best fights.
Ghost Recon in real life.
Yeah, like
Everything
probably one of
Ghost
the
Recon
best
has ever
future
wanted to
combat.
be.
Yeah, I think it would be the best future combat fight scenes I've seen in a good long while.
Yeah, before we get into that, though, I did want to point out, it does seem that at least we can look forward to the fact that in 2032, Call of Duty is still doing World War II. Anyway.
Thinking the same thing. I was gonna be so annoyed if the game was World War II. I was like, that's so lazy. That is the laziest writing you could do. Is just go
I did
straight,
not see that coming!
No, I didn't.
No. Just wait. I'm predicting it now. We're eventually going to hit a zombie level.
Oh, I hope so.
Dude, I think there already were. There's like random talks about it, like, oh yeah, you get trapped in this one room and you have to like kill hordes and hordes, and it was just like a nuanced one of the levels that they had supposedly passed or gone around at one point.
Yeah.
But like, dude, I loved the fact that the tier 1 operators are way more tier 1 than the Time War, the Forever War with oh man, I can't remember his name, Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Where he just goes to the future and is in
The
about
Tomorrow
the same
War.
shoes. Tomorrow.
I was
War.
going to say, there's a
And-
Forever War movie show. We didn't review it with the book. We have failed.
Oh, that's right. That was the book. I was trying to think
No,
of where
we
that
do
title
want a
made
Forever
sense.
War movie or show. Amazon Prime, if you're watching, get the
Netflix,
Forever War
if you
man.
want to start kicking nuts against Amazon.
You guys suck. You guys suck at fantasy. You can't get fantasy for shit. But man, when you guys do sci-fi, we're here for it. Sci-fi and realistic fiction. That's two of Prime's great.
That's
that's
your
pretty
jam.
good. That's pretty good.
Amazon is really good at paying for CGI.
Yep.
let's just stop having them try to also pay for writers.
Let's
'cause
just
they
stop
are
trying to
not willing put out for
co-opt
writers.
classic works that don't need co-opting.
Yeah.
But go for it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, but like the tactics that we see displayed, like at one point the invading mercenaries launch a drone, and what do these tier 1 operators do? They hack it and rig up a video feed, and they're like, let's show these fools who they're playing with. And then during the fight,
they were gonna wipe the floor with them
Right,
because
and-
of that. I was so hyped. I was like, okay, yeah, they're cheating, and that's why they win.
yeah, and the fun part was near the end of that fight when they realized that they've been hacked right back.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was like, oh, it is a it is a multiplayer game. Like it is. Oh, you get 30 seconds of camera. Jammer, screw your HUD,
Yeah.
screw your world. Like you're going
Stupid Call of Duty perks.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I love about it. You've got Call of Duty, World War II Call of Duty, you've got Ghost Recon, and you've got
Tron Legacy.
Tron Legacy. There you go. Those are like all 4
And
of
Westworld.
these, and Westworld on top of it, and it's all combined
Yeah,
in a
see,
world where it's its own story, where none of those actually wholly matter to the main story that's going on. They all add to it. They all add weight and carry it to where it is and make it relatable on all those other fronts. But also this one story that's trudging through is amazing. What do you guys think about the 3D shop as like a form of business in the
Oh, the 3D
future?
print shop? Dude, I've been saying that would be, look, one of the things that I've been saying I would love to do, that I think would be a great thing to do, would be to set up a way to print like a D&D miniature in a while you wait kind of format, and set that up in like a game store. So you walk in, you put in the parameters of your character, and it prints you a mini in like an hour. That would be the best shop ever. And if it ever gets 3D printing to the point where it could handle that, a vending machine 3D printer to print out like items while you wait kind of scenario would be fantastic. This is absolutely a thing we are going to see down the road.
Well, and their version of it, I felt like, was the most accurate for a rustic town in the future. Like 90% of their orders are handled by these 2 techs who know exactly what's going on with the printer. And then like all the rest are handled by this one tech who knows how to fix the printers. And that seemed so normal. And then also like the way that they just threw it into this strip mall and also maintain the nuance of pharmaceuticals constantly costing tons of money, and then also just all of the real world struggles of real poor people in the future, and they're dealing with them in a futuristic way, not the normal way, not the way that we currently are. They're like took the time to add all of those layers to this story, and I love that so much. Even though it's never talked about, like they never do you work. Oh, I work at the local 3D print shop because, as you know, in 2024 we started using 3D print shops like a regular thing. No, skip over that. That's where do you work? What is that? Are those tiny fridges? Oh, they're printing things. Oh, I know about 3D printers. I can connect the dots. Most people might not, so they won't connect the dots. They'll just be like, "Oh, that's a weird future thing I would have never expected."
Yeah, I liked how 80s retro that store looked too. I thought that was funny. I also thought that was scary because it seems that 80s nostalgia is going to go on for several more decades.
Well, it's like a 1-hour photo booth, right? I mean, like that's what I felt like the 3D printer shop was.
Yeah. Rende writes in, says, there's already something similar online. Hero Forge prints custom minis, but boy, they're pricey. Yeah, same with the reason I haven't bought any Star Trek Online ships is because I can't justify $120 for a micro machine that, you know, I've already got a bunch of.
That's what made this make sense as a lucrative business, because one of the like struggles with owning a 3D printer is you own one. This store is printing Or
Like
has like it looks
30
like
of
rows of
Yeah.
3 rows of 10, and that was the front office. We didn't even see the ones that were printing the helmet, because that was using a different type of alloy versus like the wedding decorations we see. And so I think that's like what made it so cool is like, what if Hero Forge had an entire shop in every neighborhood across America? It was a McDonald's of 3D printing.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
that's
even
what
think
this
it needs
looks
to
like.
be a. I don't even think it needs to be a full shop. If Hero Forge was gonna like set up like, I don't know, like I almost want to call it a vending machine style setup. I think it would work great. You just
Look,
got to get the reliability up.
I think it's closer to a 1-hour photo thing, where
Yeah.
like, put your order in and then go shop around the mall.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're done shopping around the mall, your character's done.
Yeah,
unless the parts for 3D printers become so mainstream that stealing them would be, less lucrative than just leaving the damn thing alone. You're probably going to have a shop style with security, because 3D printers, as you know, Mr. Corione, not cheap.
Actually,
the one guy who
is it on your
3D
Canadian
printed a
health
3D
plan?
printer and then posted how to build your own 3D printer and encourages people to buy his, make their own, and return his.
So the Canadian,
honestly, you can build a reasonable 3D printer for about $200 if you're willing to do it yourself. My 3D printer is a bit more advanced one. I'm using a resin printer because I print more detailed stuff. That being said,
Skoglioten has subscribed. Skoglioten, welcome. Thank you for the support. We greatly appreciate it. That puts us at 90 subscribers. We are 10 away from getting a better custom URL.
So
crushing it. Thank you, Skogly.
Welcome, Skogly. Glad to see you here, and we'll of course look forward to seeing you Thursday.
Yeah. That all being said, Petey, if you've got ships you want printed, send me the list. I'll cover you.
I'll get it right to you as soon. I got my entire fleet my micro machines could use some new company. Arende says,
holds up a toilet paper of just all of them he's been writing. It's the one roll of toilet paper he's actually saved forever.
Well, I definitely want to get my memorial ships, like the ones I made after Mom and Royce and my buddy Steve Ferris. I'd like to have those printed at some point. And then of course, I mean,
paint names across them.
That being said, at some point I've got to break down and decide to print a the station Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, I could actually use one of those because my DS9 has battle damage.
Nice.
Arende said, thanks to Arende says, I have a filament printer. Bought very good minis. Resins is better for player character minis, or excuse me, not very good.
For minis, yeah.
And Nemesis of Eden asks, how much did yours cost, Corione?
I paid for my God, I can't even remember the name of the printer now, but mine is a really high resolution resin printer, and I paid about $200 for mine. But I got mine used. I wheeled and dealed and got sneaky about it and managed to get a really good deal on mine.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The IRS writes in, what is your annual income? Sorry, deleted that one as a bot.
Yeah, no. My annual income is, I do okay.
Actually, I'm pretty sure Corione would respond to that to the IRS going, I don't answer to you.
Yeah, exactly. The
you
IRS
answer to something much worse.
Looks like
CRA's
the Mounties
alright.
have entered the chat. No, we've joined with the IRS. We are here to arrest
It's
you.
a global IRS, peasants. Actually, it technically is. That's a show. That's a discussion for the Rogue Council once again. We need to start writing all these down, and then we may have to go to a just 3 weeks at a time show here very soon.
Just wait. Inside Job Season 2 is coming. When that comes, I want to hit that on Rogue Council. Something fierce.
Nemesis of Eden says, that's really good. I'm interested in getting a 3D printer. I have a business idea I'd like to enact in the future. Well, why wait, Nemesis of Eden? Whatever your idea is, enact it now, because tomorrow's never guaranteed.
Now.
Unless it's one of those, long,
are holding you back.
Yeah, unless it's one of those long-term goals. Like my new current goal is regardless of the success of TWB, regardless of the success of Galaxy as a book, whatever happens, I now have a new goal, and my wife just got us a gateway into getting there. And that is, I'm going to own a Taco Bell. Regardless of what happens with our success here on this show, and that's the best part. If I own a Taco Bell, I can retire because I own a Taco Bell. And that's now one of my new life goals, regardless of where this goes. And I hope it goes. I hope in 5 years from now, we're doing this show live on the beach in Key West with alcohol.
No, dude, we're going to do it live in your Taco Bell.
And absolutely. Maybe I can buy the Key West Taco Bell when the time comes, but that's it right now. Nemesis V says, just lacking the cash right now. Okay, so.
And that's why I say write it down.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you write it down once, rewrite it and make it literally 100% lucrative. Pretend like you're pitching to Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Practice like you're going to pitch to Shark Tank. And then when you actually pitch to real investors, they'll be like, dude, you overdid it, but yes, here's our money.
And depending on what kind of business you're getting into, you might want to at least try and have 50% ready and not be totally reliant on loans. The loan credit system is very, well, speaking of sharks, yeah.
And
but that's good. That's good that you got your goals going.
Meetings.
That's awesome. We love hearing that here. People working on success stories. That's fantastic. And we wish you the best. And, we're not super business minded ourselves. We're still learning along the way with this show. But we do believe in networking and getting you the resources.
You're a video game QA too?
Oh, shit.
That's great. Me too.
Yeah, I was for Halo Infinite, and I missed the job itself a little bit, but yeah. Skoglioten writes in predatory. Yes, loan sharking is very predatory, and
right, and that's why. So here's a couple of real world suggestions that I learned in my time as an entrepreneur. Your local colleges and find their business department, and then find what they're doing for pitch, because a lot of local investors in your area will go to those meetings and tell you how to get better.
Yes.
And then on top of that, not just local pitch meetings and local colleges, but the Better Business Bureau, if you're in the United States. The Better Business Bureau, I don't know if it extends all the way to Canada.
Same.
They're a great organization that's usually local, that you can use.
They're usually not local. That's why people trust
business.
them.
Yeah. The furthest thing from loco, they're usually super boring but useful, like very communicative, very mature, like professional speak.
Very informational.
But they're almost always extremely informative.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Corione, you could talk about whatever. I'm sure your employer, they probably network with tech schools all over the place. I mean, that's the place to get your business connects is definitely tech school. Whether you want to go to tech school or just try to network there, however you want to go about doing it, lots of businesses. I mean, we even here in Idaho have at our local community college, we have a Cisco networking course. It's literally called the Cisco networking course. So
yeah. And if you're not in school, it's even easier, because I don't say go to this school as a student. I say just go look at their boards on their websites in the actual building. You will find the events and a flyer, and they never say students only, or almost never say.
Yeah, Nemesis says thank you for the advice. Anytime, we're here to help any way we can, as best we can.
And Nemesis, if you have any questions about 3D printing and whatnot, hit me up on Twitter. I'll try to answer what I can. At Corione.
Yeah, that's if only there was something we could do for that. But yeah, I was watching it, and I had never felt so wrapped in a sci-fi show the way that it was. Like I said, it was very similar to the feelings I got when I watched Altered Carbon for the first time. Season 1, let's not get carried away. I didn't watch season 2, so I can't have a real opinion on it, but I didn't feel like it was worth the time.
I would also say that this 100% feels a lot like, if you like this, you will love William Gibson's actual work. So check him out too.
I apparently am having problems spelling Corione all of a sudden. And
Coraon.
yes, if you would like to talk to Corion directly and don't want to put up with me, this is how you can reach him. Yeah, honestly, I don't see too much. I mean, what do you guys think's gonna come? What do you think what kind of ride do you think we're in for what do you foresee taking place?
Okay, well, first I think we're going to find out about the calamity that happens between the two timelines. One. Two, I think we're going to find out that the device that she interfaced with in the first episode when she was pretending to be Reese, I think we're going to find out that that is the key to being able to manipulate timelines. Like that is the trick to this whole temporal thing, and that's what everyone is really after, is the ability to go through the various timelines and pull stuff out as needed.
Yeah, and that's what I like is I love the ambiguity behind how exactly does this stuff work, because they call it quantum tunneling, not to get confused with traverse drive tunneling, which I use as the faster than light travel in this story for those interested. Link in the comments, John. But what I like is that it implies that they might not be on the same timeline, and that they might just be crossing instances, and that what happens in their future might not necessarily, well, obviously won't impact the past for physical reasons, but like the future that they're supposedly fighting in and messing with might not actually be their future. And so, and of course she calls them out. She's like, oh, so you guys don't really care about me because I might not even be the person you work with on the next job. And they're like, well, it's not that so simple.
Yeah, Rende, they do say they outright say they are on different timelines, but I feel like that's more of an important line than a throwaway. If anything, I think it really gives away the secret of the series.
I really felt like it created the multiverse similar to any like Marvel multiverse theory and stuff like that, but then if you think about it, they immediately nipped it in the snub by deciding that as soon as the initial interaction occurred, that world's history is no longer equal to the 2099 history. And so when in the very first scene of the first episode, Alastia, I can't remember her name or how to pronounce it, but
Alita, not to be confused with
Angel.
No, it's spelled differently. It's Alita, Aelita.
When Alita says, "I'm going to save a world," and that's how she knows that her job is not to save every world or the main world, it's to stop these snubs from being exploited, because like as long as they have connection to this snub, they can constantly use it to their benefit in some extent. Like they can use the operators to their benefit. So what if they just turned an entire snub into operators and built Roman style empire buildings?
Even just consider this is my current working theory. If you have this ability to quantum tunnel into other realities, okay, you now have a complete multiverse at your disposal in terms of technology, innovation, resources, potentially their genetic info, potentially their computer information. Imagine if you had the internet from an infinite number of theoretical Earths, where things are different enough that you had innovations from all those worlds. Imagine the technology you could suddenly bring to the forefront, right? If you had the manufacturing capability, you could basically produce anything at that point, right? I mean, just consider this, right? And I'm just using basic stuff, right? imagine we have access to the sum total knowledge of every fictional universe we've ever come across. Suddenly, I'm
Well,
pulling stealth boys from Fallout. I'm, looking up Tony Stark's old armor designs. I'm grabbing Shield helicarrier blueprints, like just whatever. You don't know, right? It's a grab bag potentially of technology, and that's a heck of an interesting thing that this could be just purely monetarily motivated by.
yeah, and I think it even implies though too that they might just that could just actually be a throwaway line so that the timeline is preserved. So that oh yeah, no, we don't actually, you're not actually from our past, but we're saying that so that you don't change your actions to distort our future, because as it turns out you are linked directly to our past. But they're trying to be coy about it because that's how they keep the from interfering with the timeline is just tell them that they don't matter, they don't make a difference for us, and then that makes them more receptive to working in the future.
I feel like they made it much more convincing, and while technically it's super chaotic because the amount of possibilities are suddenly endless, again, just like Rick and Morty and just like multiverse and just like all these other things. But if you think about it, they really did do a better version of the TVA from Loki, where there is a group well aware of what they're doing, but they don't necessarily know the outcomes. It's not like they're constantly in every world, in every timeline, at every instance. Instead, no, they're responsible for creating multiple instances. And who is keeping them in check? The rich people that invented them, that are also making money off of them continuing to not be in check. Kind of like every other corporation in the history of ever. Like this world, they're like, where did all these people go? Well, they probably either got farmed to death for their labor or were killed and now no longer needed to be repopulated because we have mechanical labor force that's much easier to sustain, and reproduction for some reason may or may not have ended. I kind of get the vibe that reproduction ended.
Yeah,
that's part of the catastrophe.
There's definitely going to be some interesting developments the second she decides to go on Google and look herself up to see what happens in these other timelines. And I mean, there's so many directions this show could go. And I was already surprised after that opening gun battle in season 2. They
actually did a good job of making sure that they can't see all of the timelines. They explained that this is a black research, like the ability to achieve it is super secret, and Alita did have to break into a super dark site. Like we saw them go down 100 floors, and there was a freaking whale in the middle.
Yeah, I was gonna say, to be fair though, like 50 of those whales or 50 of those floors are for the sperm whale that's just kind of chilling out down there.
But then also to like think about it, like what if the people that we're watching are London 2099's version of the Resistance, see Star Wars, but
I'm good.
Even in this world, the poorest people are still way off than better off than the richest people of our time. And all the people are missing because they're in those towers and they have actually like paid their allegiance to the tower.
I prefer to believe that actually the sperm whale there is another one of these beings that they've grabbed from another timeline, and he's just this really smart sperm whale that they have working in the research lab.
What if it's literally just a way of making you not want to drill in? Like they're just like, we literally just cut the ocean and now there is a hollow earth because we made it so that you can't get to the other levels underneath or in between,
but that's gonna really
cause the continents to like drift, and I don't think that's really as doable
I was just gonna go with like that's gonna really piss off the flat earthers, dude.
Yeah.
Hollow earth.
They find out that it's actually hollow, not flat. Oh, to drive them crazy.
Now, somebody in charge of the construction was obviously a huge Star Trek 4 fan, and was like, okay, we need to get a whale in there. Well, okay, the humpbacks went extinct anyway. Well, Let's try sperm whale for the next best thing. Arenda writes in.
Arendi,
Oh, go
Arendi,
ahead.
you're probably right. It is
Well,
probably just them trying to bring back extinct animals.
Well, you got to read the text first on this show.
All
Remember, we're a
right.
podcast.
All right. So Arendi, or they're just trying to bring back animals that went extinct from whatever catastrophe happened. Look, you're totally right. That's probably what it is, but this is way more fun.
Yeah.
And the one thing you can count on me to do is come up with ridiculous, hilarious theories that sometimes turn out right.
Yeah, and that's one of the
I
reasons we bring you back. Arende follows up, says, imagine the money you'd be able to make if you control animal repopulation.
And that was kind of hinted at with the financier of this
who had
whole
the
operation.
Tasmanian tigers. Yeah.
Exactly. But also it was the most throwaway version of Jurassic Park. Like, I really get the vibe that they inadvertently permanently removed reproduction from their society. And so, because like, you kind of have to think about the idea of what would drive Jeff Bezos to inventing time travel with the past and not the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so my thought is, well, nobody can reproduce anymore.
Nemesis of
He's
Eden
not going
writes.
to give everybody access.
Nemesis of Eden writes in and says, I'd make a chocobo if I could. That's a mount in Final Fantasy.
It's a chicken ostrich.
Yeah, no,
It's
it's
fantastic.
It's a non-flying bird. Yeah, I like I said, I had high expectations for this show, and they've already been met. So I'm really looking forward to the.
Here's something crazy that I think we kind of didn't notice. The bike disintegrated like it was a video game.
Yeah. So
do they have nanotech?
Yeah, nanotech.
Because that plays all these other like important pieces into the whole story. Like, what if the Tasmanian tigers aren't actually genetically created? They're just nanites in Tasmanian tiger form.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then
It's a lot to go on, you know. It's
now we have the Borg as a possible adversary.
Yeah, technically, because like there's all these computers, there's all these robots, and there's time travel, and time travel in terms of going back is what we know, but we haven't seen. Something happened with the eye in the first episode that seems super important because Alita risked an entire unknown.
That was a hard one to watch.
I had Kurtzman vibes suddenly. I
know, I did too.
I was like, oh man, why we got to do the eye thing again?
But
like,
it was scientific and it had actual purpose, not, you know, how do we kill off a character in the most asinine, stuck-up way possible for no real reason aside from meaningless, vindictive bullshit.
And when you realize that everybody involved is a peripheral, it kind of makes it less terrifying.
Right.
Are they though?
Well,
I get this really strong sense that Alita knew who she was dealing with, and all of the initiation that we've seen so far seems like Alita's now going to be like the main adversary or the main goal. But I think Alita and the main character are a lot more closely related than we know in terms of like their genes.
they could
their
be
family lines.
They could even exist in the same timeline.
Well, I get this major vibe that
hey guys, I gotta bounce. You guys carry on.
Oh, okay.
But I've just actually got work paging me, so I gotta go.
All right, duty calls.
All right, guys, take care.
Have a good night. Good discussion.
Love you, bye.
Bye.
But I think about this, like the idea of what if the Alita's reason for setting her up in all those steps, what we thought of as like, oh, that was pushing the camel for a suicide vest, right? Like the peripheral that the main character is playing is just a suicide vest that Alita needed. But why didn't she look at the thing? Why was it that she used this peripheral to take in that information? And because they took in that information,
Somebody's really excited about Peripheral back there.
Somebody's.
I mean, that was
too
basically
late
what
and
I was doing
falling
the whole
asleep.
time I was watching the show, just, quietly in my head. Like, I wasn't
I
necessarily nervous
fangirling
going
the
in,
whole time.
but I didn't think we were going to get top tier, grade A, grass-fed sci-fi with this show. And this
Not that
is
fast either.
this is what I
Like,
love.
it's in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. This is what I love about science fiction. This is exactly the type of science fiction that I enjoy. It's one of the reasons I, Robot is one of my favorite stories. And yes, I love Star Wars and Star Trek, but those are more science fantasy, admittedly. This is true, grounded science fiction the way that it is supposed to be. Nemesis of Eden says, this show really sounds a bit intriguing. Yes, and this is it. It's a weekly drop every Friday on Amazon Prime. So if you want to catch up on those first couple episodes and then hit up episode 3 and then be more involved in the discussion next week, please do. We and of course we'll be
Yeah, I
continuing
want to hear your
DS9
guys'
next week.
thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like your imaginations of what we're seeing. Like, even if we're wrong, it's more fun to see how wrong we are. Like, let's
Yeah,
get
no, we
chaotic
love
with this science fiction.
We love doing theories on this show, and so it's one of the best things. All right, we are coming down to the last 4 minutes or so. So, John, anything you want to plug or any quick last things you want to say about Peripheral before we wrap it up here?
Plug Always Sunny podcast. I started watching that this week. It has been so funny. If you like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's Mac, Charlie, and Dennis. Just in a podcast, and if instead of bartenders, they're writers. It literally feels exactly like any of the banter scenes in Always Sunny, but for an hour. It's the best thing I've ever watched. It's so funny. It's so great. And just so non-asking anything of you. Like, they automatically got 100,000 views
Of course.
right out the gate because of Always Sunny. And so they're not constantly plugging anything. They did finally get ads at episode 35, but they gotta make money too, but they're also like
one of
really
my
funny
goals
about it. They don't lose step in it. They're their ads are written by them, done to each other, for each other, and making money off it.
Along with eventually one day owning a Taco Bell, I absolutely will be paying for ad space on this show to promote Taco Bell. It doesn't need it, but that's how much I love Taco Bell.
Oh, dude, we'll promote your Taco Bell just so that we can get more fans to show up for signings.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's where
yeah.
start is. It's gonna be the TWBacon will be in the Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Your local Taco Bell. You guys host it. You set it up. You bring your own flyers. We'll cheer you on.
Yeah. Also on Thursday, we will be having a new episode with Corione, doing the Rogue Council broadcast, which I can never find him on YouTube. So, actually, wait, it should just be youtube.com/Corione.
There's another character. It's like /something/. It's like one letter. Like
There's
W
some,
or
yeah,
something like that.
Corzaone, Witch in Residence, which, okay. Whatever. So please tune in Thursday for that. I know some of you guys are already subscribed, and please, if you do like what we do here, it does help. We do love all your guys' support and all your interaction, and we do appreciate
participation.
and
Like, it's really fun to talk to you,
Absolutely,
especially directly.
Absolutely. I mean, right now we're still a small show, and we're happy to be a small show so we can be a bit more authentic and have these more personal discussions. Enjoy the ride while we're still here, because that's the thing I remind myself of. Yeah, I'd like to wake up one day and be like the Sunny in Philadelphia and have those 100,000 views. I'm also happy to get to know you guys that are here first initially in the founding days of the Writer Brothers, and so you guys are all just as important making this dream a reality, and we love bringing content to you guys. And of course, we'll keep showing up every Tuesday as much as we can. Any last quick things to plug finally, John, before we got about
that sums it up. Thanks.
65
I
seconds.
appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining us. Hope you
and
if you all brush your teeth.
Yeah, and if you guys
really need to wipe your butts.
Yeah. Nemesis of Eden writes in, says, it's always great interacting with you guys. Sounds awesome. Stay amazing. PD Pollo, and same to Arende. We will do our best. Next week, we'll be back with our next 2 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine to continue our watch through. And we will also be back with episode 3 of The Peripheral. I'm PD York with the Ryder Brothers. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. This has been a presentation of The Ryder Brothers. The Ryder Brothers, restoring respect into Discord.